Let me start by telling you something painful and absolutely necessary. The reason you feel drained, disrespected, and perpetually stuck in a cycle of misunderstanding and emotional instability within your relationships is simple. You have normalized behavior that is fundamentally intolerable. You mistake structural disrespect for a temporary flaw that needs your patience and compassion. You confuse genuine character flaws with minor eccentricities that can be managed. And because you tolerate the intolerable, you fundamentally destroy your standing in the relationship, teaching the woman in your life that you lack the one thing she is biologically compelled to respect: boundaries built on unbreakable self-worth. We are going to walk through 7 specific high-stakes behaviors that most men, even otherwise high-value men, will habitually excuse, minimize, or ignore in a partnership, primarily because they are operating from a place of fear. The fear of conflict, the fear of loss, or the fear of loneliness. This is not a discussion about minor irritations. This is a deep dive into the psychological markers that indicate a profound lack of respect, an underdeveloped ability to pair bond, or an actively hostile framework against the partnership. If you do not recognize these 7 patterns and immediately neutralize them, you are not building a relationship. You are subsidizing her emotional chaos at the expense of your own mental health and future. This understanding requires us to engage in pattern recognition, not judgment. We must look past the performance of affection and examine the underlying psychological mechanisms. For too long, men have been conditioned to believe that maintaining peace is the highest good in a relationship. We have been taught that if conflict arises, it is usually because the man failed to be empathetic enough, communicate clearly enough, or tolerate enough. This cultural narrative is a lie designed to strip you of your agency and your boundaries. It serves the chaos by making you responsible for managing the unmanageable. The essential truth of female psychology is this: a woman will unconsciously, and sometimes very consciously, test the boundaries of a man she is involved with. She does this not necessarily because she is malicious, but because her survival instinct, the hypergamous drive to secure the strongest, most dependable partner, demands constant verification of his strength. She must know, deep down, whether you are capable of leading, protecting, and maintaining order, especially when tested. When you tolerate poor behavior, when you allow disrespect to slide, when you accept unacceptable treatment, you fail the test spectacularly. You broadcast, in loud, unmistakable psychological language, that your boundaries are flexible, your self-respect is negotiable, and your leadership is weak. And this is where the dynamic becomes corrosive. A woman cannot feel safe, and therefore cannot feel genuine attraction for a man she does not respect. When she tests your boundary, and you retract it to appease her, she gets the immediate result she wanted: conflict avoidance. But she loses the long-term emotional stability she craves, which is rooted in respect. She may momentarily feel victorious for getting her way, but that victory is immediately followed by a profound, often unconscious, drop in respect for you. That drop in respect is the genesis of contempt. Contempt is the silent killer of relationships. It is the psychological toxin that makes her withhold intimacy, that makes her criticize your efforts, that makes her look past you to other men, and that ultimately makes her leave, or worse, stay and resent you bitterly. Contempt is rooted in the knowledge that she, the woman, is stronger than you, the man, because she was able to make you compromise your core values for her convenience. When you tolerate disrespect, you are not being a good partner. You are committing emotional suicide and creating the condition for her eventual dissatisfaction. This knowledge is universal, but your personal context matters. So tell me, where are you tuning in from right now? Drop the name of your city below. Knowing where this message is landing helps us understand the global nature of these dynamics and the necessity of this conversation. Now, let's get back to the core reality of what happens when the tolerance mechanism takes over. The most common mental trap men fall into is the belief that their patience will eventually lead to transformation. They look at her unacceptable behavior. Maybe it is dramatic mood swings. Maybe it is chronic lateness. Maybe it is overt selfishness. And they think, if I just show her enough love, if I just invest enough time, she will see the light and change for me. This is a fantasy built on scarcity mindset. You are essentially offering the equivalent of emotional debt, hoping that your investment in her poor behavior will yield a return in stability. It never works that way. Psychology shows us that behavior that is rewarded is repeated. When she acts out or exhibits one of these 7 intolerable behaviors, and you respond by attempting to placate her, offering extra attention, or apologizing for the conflict she initiated, you have inadvertently rewarded the destructive behavior. You have trained her that the way to get your resources, your focus, or your commitment is through instability. Consider the compounding effect of this tolerance. In the early stages of a relationship, a man might tolerate a minor boundary violation. Say, she routinely cancels plans last minute without a genuine excuse. He tolerates it because she is attractive, and he wants to keep dating her. She recognizes this tolerance as a weakness in his schedule and priorities. Soon, this tolerance escalates. She starts speaking to him disrespectfully during arguments. He tolerates it because he fears the argument will escalate into a breakup. She recognizes this tolerance as a weakness in his requirement for verbal civility. Eventually, she may engage in financially irresponsible behavior or maintain inappropriate relationships with male friends. He tolerates it because he is now deeply invested and terrified of starting over. By this point, the woman is living in a relationship where she has zero respect for the man, and he is miserable but feels trapped because he confused his tolerance for commitment. This sequence is crucial. Tolerance breeds contempt. Contempt breeds chaos. Chaos leads to the demise of the relationship. Now, we need to focus on what makes these 7 behaviors fundamentally intolerable, distinguishing them from simple relationship problems. A relationship problem is a challenge both partners are willing to solve, e.g., communication style differences, financial disagreements. An intolerable behavior is one that fundamentally undermines your dignity, compromises the integrity of the partnership, or shows a persistent lack of self-awareness and accountability on her part. Tolerating these 7 things means you are actively consenting to your own marginalization. When a woman engages in these intolerable behaviors, she is showing you her true operational values. She is demonstrating that her comfort, her fleeting emotional state, or her selfish convenience takes precedence over your shared future and your personal well-being. A man who tolerates this fundamentally devalues himself in his own eyes, and this internal devaluation is what she mirrors back to you through her continued lack of respect. You cannot ask her to respect you when you refuse to respect yourself enough to enforce your boundaries. The core difficulty for most men is the inability to distinguish between the desire for genuine connection and the desire for peace. Men crave stability. We are fundamentally providers and problem solvers. When we see chaos, our default programming is to find the quickest path to resolution. Often, the quickest path is simply giving in, swallowing our pride, and tolerating the offense. But the quick path to peace is the long path to resentment. The momentary relief of avoiding conflict today results in a permanent reduction of your value tomorrow. We are entering a phase of understanding where we recognize that demanding respect is not cruelty, it is self-preservation. Setting boundaries is not about controlling her, it is about establishing the non-negotiable definition of who you are and what your life requires for stability. The 7 behaviors we will examine next are violations so severe that they should trigger an immediate, non-negotiable review of the partnership. Think about the psychological toll on you when you constantly walk on eggshells, biting your tongue, knowing that certain subjects are off limits, or knowing that certain behaviors will be repeated, and you simply have to endure them. That stress is cumulative. It manifests as anxiety, physical health issues, diminished ambition, and a complete loss of vitality. Your energy, which should be invested in your purpose and your future, is instead consumed by the management of her emotional instability and your self-imposed silence regarding her disrespect. The foundation we establish here is that your job is not to manage her disrespect. Your job is to enforce your standard. If she cannot meet that standard, the partnership must end, not as a punishment to her, but as an act of profound self-respect for yourself. This is the difference between being a man who is chosen and a man who is merely settled for, a man who demands mutual respect versus a man who is grateful for crumbs. This conversation requires brutal honesty, And we must confront the uncomfortable fact that many women today have been socially conditioned to believe that these behaviors are acceptable because they have always been tolerated. The modern dynamic has taught many women that their emotional output is more valuable than their accountability, and that men will consistently prioritize access to them over the maintenance of their own self-respect. We are breaking that pattern right now. We are drawing a line in the sand, defining what genuine partnership requires, and what absolute disrespect looks like. We have established the psychological terrain. Tolerance leads to contempt, and contempt is terminal for attraction and love. In the following sections, we will identify the specific, actionable behaviors that signal this fundamental disrespect, ensuring you can identify them instantly and decisively neutralize their presence in your life. This discussion is the foundation. We are building the fortress of your self-respect. Now demonstrate your commitment to this new standard. In the comments, write this exact phrase: "My standard is non-negotiable." That phrase seals the shift in your mindset and affirms your declaration of self-worth. We are cutting through the noise and delivering the truth straight to you. You secure access to all future insights by hitting that subscribe button and liking this video immediately. This action confirms your spot in the community of men committed to reality and excellence. And understand this, we have only laid the groundwork. In the next part, we dive directly into the first 3 behaviors that destroy a man's standing and ruin the relationship. You need to know what they are and how to neutralize them instantly. The knowledge coming next will fundamentally reorganize how you view relationships forever. Ensure you are locked in for the critical steps coming tomorrow. Stop normalizing the disrespect. Stop calling red flags just quirks. There is a slow, silent erosion happening in modern relationships where men, especially good men, confuse patience with pathology. You confuse being understanding with being a doormat. You tolerate things because your subconscious has been trained to believe that conflict is worse than compromise, that losing her is worse than losing your self-respect. This is a foundational error, and it's one that female psychology is ruthlessly optimized to exploit. We are talking about the absolute non-negotiable standards you must maintain to keep your dignity and attract the kind of woman who respects strength, not weakness. This isn't about control. This is about self-preservation. This is part 2 of the definitive series on what female psychology dictates and why your tolerance is the single greatest threat to your happiness, your resources, and your future success. I know this truth hits differently depending on where you are absorbing this information. So tell me, what city are you tuning in from right now? We are building a global community of men who demand clarity and reality, regardless of the noise and the cultural programming around us. Let's dive directly into the things that most men tolerate, that absolutely destroy the structural integrity of a relationship, and that high-value women would never even attempt with a man they genuinely respect. The first intolerable behavior that most men overlook, confusing it for passion or intensity, is weaponized emotional volatility, specifically the strategic use of manufactured crisis to control your behavior. This is not the occasional bad day or understandable stress. This is a pattern where your partner generates extreme emotional reactions, outbursts, tears, sudden withdrawal, gaslighting, not as a genuine expression of pain, but as a tool to test your boundaries and force immediate compliance. You see, many women, particularly those with a history of relationship instability or narcissistic tendencies, learn early that a man's need for peace and stability can be leveraged against him. If she can successfully create chaos and you, the man, consistently respond by immediately conceding, apologizing, or pouring excessive emotional resources into calming her down, she has learned a powerful lesson. Chaos works. The moment you tolerate a manufactured crisis, you reward low investment, high drama behavior. She is essentially teaching you that the price of peace is the forfeiture of your principles. You are being trained to walk on eggshells. This manifests in specific ways that are devastating to a man's mental health. She will create a fight over something minuscule, a forgotten text, a look at another woman, a slightly late arrival, and escalate it to the point of threatening the relationship itself. Why? Because she needs to see that you fear losing her more than you value your own sanity. When you rush to apologize, even when you did nothing wrong, just to stop the noise, you reinforce the pattern. The resentment builds silently within you, eroding your genuine affection and replacing it with duty and fear. Psychologically, this behavior stems from a failure to develop internal emotional regulation. When women are consistently validated for their emotional reactions, regardless of proportionality, they never learn accountability. They externalize their responsibility. If she feels bad, it must be your fault. If she's anxious, you must soothe her instantly, regardless of your current task or emotional state. The man who tolerates this becomes an emotional crash test dummy, constantly absorbing impact and apologizing for the vehicle's design flaws. When you tolerate emotional volatility as a primary conflict resolution strategy, you are signing up for a life where you are perpetually guilty until proven guilty again. And what's truly insidious is that many men, conditioned by cultural narratives, confuse this volatility with depth or passion. They think, she fights hard because she cares so much. No, she fights dirty because she cares only about control. A woman who genuinely respects you and the partnership seeks resolution, not destruction. She respects your emotional stability too much to weaponize her distress against you. Stop tolerating the storms she creates just to see if you will weather them on her terms. The price of that peace is far too high. The second intolerable pattern that most men allow, often dismissing it as feminine curiosity or attachment, is the systematic disrespect for your time, space, and privacy. This is the erosion of boundaries that define you as a functioning, autonomous individual. When a woman genuinely respects a man, she respects his structure, his mission, and the necessary isolation required for him to execute his responsibilities. When she does not respect him, she views his life structure as an obstacle to her immediate emotional needs or an inconvenient limitation on her access. You become a resource to be consumed, not a partner to be coordinated with. The tolerance for this disrespect starts subtly. It begins with the expectation of immediate availability. If you are working, she texts relentlessly, demanding immediate responses and escalating the tone if you take longer than 5 minutes. If you are with friends or pursuing a hobby, she inserts herself, demanding attention and subtly or overtly expressing dissatisfaction that your focus is not exclusively on her. This behavior demonstrates a profound lack of respect for your mission and your male identity. She is essentially communicating that your time is only valuable when spent serving her comfort. The major tolerance in this category, however, is the invasion of privacy. We are talking about the normalized behavior of checking your phone, demanding passwords, monitoring your social media interactions, or insisting on knowing the exact details of your location and activities at all times. Men often tolerate this because the woman frames it as concern or trust issues stemming from past trauma. But a man's boundary is not a negotiable symptom of her past. It is the definition of his autonomy in the present. When you surrender your privacy, you surrender your self-definition. You concede the right to have an internal, unmonitored life. This tolerance trains her that she has the right to manage you, not partner with you. Think about the psychological implications. A woman who feels the compulsive need to monitor you is a woman who fundamentally does not trust you, regardless of her claims of love. This lack of trust is a reflection of her internal instability, not your demonstrated behavior. By tolerating the invasion, you are tacitly accepting the role of the untrustworthy subordinate who must be supervised. This destroys sexual attraction, which is rooted in feminine respect for masculine independence and mystery. No woman is passionately attracted to a man she can fully contain and monitor. When she is constantly looking over your shoulder, she is seeking evidence of your flaws, not celebrating your strengths. When you allow this continuous investigation, you validate the premise that you are inherently suspicious. A high-value man's time is his most precious resource, the raw material for his success. A high-value woman understands and amplifies this, protecting his space and structure. When you tolerate late cancellations without genuine apology, chronic lateness to appointments, or the demand that you drop everything immediately to solve a trivial problem, you are training her that your time has no objective value. You are communicating that she is the center of your universe, which is the fastest way to kill her respect. Respect demands structure, and structure demands firm, unwavering boundaries around your schedule, your personal space, and your need for solitude. The moment you tolerate the constant chipping away at these boundaries, you are inviting instability and ultimately, contempt. The third toxic behavior that men far too often tolerate is the refusal of accountability, coupled with chronic blame shifting. This is a relationship killer because it makes true conflict resolution impossible. We covered the emotional performance, but this behavior focuses on the cognitive distortion that prevents any admission of fault. Accountability is the cornerstone of maturity and partnership. When something goes wrong, a mature partner assesses her role in the conflict, offers a genuine apology, and adjusts future behavior. A partner who refuses accountability, however, operates on a constant victim narrative. You will notice this pattern when every single relationship issue, past and present, is framed as something done to her by external factors. The terrible ex-boyfriend, the toxic workplace, her complicated family, or most conveniently, your own insensitivity. She becomes the central figure in a perpetual drama where she is the helpless protagonist and you are either the villain or the underqualified rescuer. When you point out a flaw or a hurtful behavior, she immediately redirects the focus back onto you. If you say, "It hurt my feelings when you spoke to me that way," the response is not, "I'm sorry," but, "Well, I wouldn't have spoken to you that way if you hadn't provoked me with your tone," or, "Why are you being so sensitive?" That's an issue you need to work on. This is emotional deflection, a defense mechanism rooted in profound immaturity and often covert narcissism. By shifting the blame, she avoids the uncomfortable feeling of being flawed or responsible. And by tolerating this constant deflection, you validate her victimhood. You allow her to escape the natural consequences of her actions. The cost of this tolerance is staggering. You lose the right to hold her to any standard. You lose the ability to have a constructive conversation about change, because change requires recognizing the need for it. Furthermore, this tolerance warps your perception of reality. Over time, you start to doubt your own judgment. Maybe you are too sensitive. Maybe the reason the house is never clean, or the bills are late, or the sex is rare, is because you aren't providing enough emotional support. This is the goal of chronic blame shifting, to confuse you until you accept responsibility for her deficiencies. The moment she knows she can never be wrong in your eyes, she loses all respect for your discernment. A woman who respects you accepts accountability, even when it's painful, because she values the partnership more than her ego. She knows that admitting fault shows strength and a commitment to growth, not weakness. When you tolerate the chronic refusal to own mistakes, you are essentially agreeing to be the designated scapegoat for the duration of the relationship. This destroys psychological safety and guarantees that you will be carrying 100% of the emotional weight and logistical effort required for the relationship to survive. Stop tolerating the idea that she is perpetually flawless and that all conflict is inherently your fault. That tolerance is the silent killer of masculine self-worth. We have only scratched the surface of the non-negotiables that good men routinely sacrifice for the sake of peace or the fear of loneliness. The remaining points are even more profound, delving into issues of respect for your male identity, sexual devaluation, and the insidious way modern women test your resource limits. We will break down those final critical intolerances in the next segment, detailing exactly how female psychology leverages your need to protect and provide into total control. It is absolutely crucial that we continue this conversation and expand this understanding. I want you to share the most profound takeaway from these first points. Use the comment section right now and complete this phrase. I draw the line at. Your participation strengthens our collective clarity. If this message resonated with the truth you feel, but haven't been able to articulate, you owe it to yourself to be part of this dialogue. Hit the like button and subscribe immediately. We are committed to giving you the absolute reality of relationship dynamics, and subscribing ensures you never miss the insight that could save you years of pain and resources. Next, we are going deeper into the matrix of female testing, revealing the financial and sexual traps that men blindly walk into. Get ready for the most challenging truth yet, the information that changes everything about how you navigate the dating market. You do not want to miss the conclusion of this series. Let me deliver the final brutal truth that connects all 7 points we have discussed. The tolerance you extend to a woman's destructive behavior is not seen as grace, kindness, or unconditional love. It is registered in her subconscious as weakness, lack of boundaries, and ultimately proof that you are not the high-value man she requires for true respect. You are not earning devotion. You are simply purchasing temporary peace through the surrender of your self-respect. If you have listened to the first 2 parts of this discussion, you understand that these 7 tolerated behaviors are not quirks or accidents. They are deliberate, often subconscious, tests designed to measure the strength of your masculine frame. And when you fail the test, when you allow the behavior to continue, you are guaranteeing that the relationship will collapse into contempt, resentment, and eventual failure. This isn't a theoretical concept. This is the mechanism by which high-potential men are psychologically neutered and replaced. Before we delve into the final catastrophic errors that men tolerate, I need to know where this message is finding you right now. Take a moment. Where are you in the world? In what city, what location are you absorbing this reality about modern female psychology? Let me know your city in the comments. We are building a global community of men who refuse to live in denial, and seeing the breadth of that reach solidifies the commitment we share to truth and self-improvement. Now, let's look at the climax of male self-betrayal, the final unacceptable behaviors that erode the foundation of your value. The 5th behavior you should never, under any circumstances, tolerate is the weaponization of intimacy and affection. This is where a woman turns what should be a genuine expression of connection and desire into a tool for control, manipulation, and punishment. When a man tolerates the withdrawal of physical affection or sex as a consequence for perceived failures, disagreement, or simply because he hasn't met some unspoken emotional quota, he effectively agrees to redefine his position in the relationship from partner to supplicant. He is negotiating for the affection that should be freely given to a respected partner. Female psychology understands the profound emotional and biological drive men have for connection, and when that connection is strategically removed, it becomes a lever. She is teaching you, explicitly, that her body is not a shared space for mutual pleasure, but a marketplace where your emotional or financial compliance is the only acceptable currency. Tolerate this once, and you establish a transactional dynamic that is impossible to reverse. The relationship ceases to be a partnership of 2 integrated adults and becomes a system of reward and punishment controlled entirely by her. The long-term consequence for the man is devastating. He develops anxiety around intimacy, a constant feeling of walking on eggshells, and the slow, insidious death of his genuine desire. He stops viewing her as a lover and starts viewing her as a gatekeeper. This isn't partnership. This is emotional extortion, and a man who allows himself to be extorted sacrifices his masculinity entirely. The 6th intolerable behavior, and this one is pervasive in modern culture, is the unimposition of a double standard rooted in selective accountability. We refer to this as the my body, my choice, your responsibility framework. This mindset allows a woman to demand absolute autonomy and freedom for her past actions, her current desires, and her future choices, while simultaneously demanding that the man shoulder all the traditional burdens, consequences, and resource investment associated with commitment. You see this manifest when a woman expects you to tolerate an extensive, chaotic relationship history without question or concern, because her past is irrelevant and hers alone, but then demands absolute fidelity, financial transparency, and unwavering emotional stability from you. The fundamental flaw in tolerating this standard is that it removes the very reciprocity required for a healthy bond. She expects the reward of commitment and stability without accepting the corresponding vulnerability and accountability. She insists on the right to have maximized her options during her peak years, yet insists you have no right to question the impact of those choices on her capacity for attachment now. A woman operating from this framework is not looking for a partner. She is looking for an insurance policy against the consequences of her own choices. Your acceptance of this double standard means you agree to be the reliable, silent provider who must overcome her relationship baggage while never being allowed to discuss or acknowledge it. A man who agrees to this is essentially committing to a relationship where he is always playing defense, constantly proving his worth, while her past remains an untouchable, protected zone. This tolerance is the ultimate psychological surrender, cementing the fact that her history is more valuable than your peace of mind. The seventh and perhaps most socially corrosive behavior that men tolerate is the sudden public and private dismissal or belittling of their ambition, career, or competence. This isn't merely criticism, this is contempt disguised as constructive feedback. A woman who constantly diminishes your achievements, minimizes your struggles, or publicly jokes about your perceived weaknesses, financial, professional, or physical, is using social humiliation to manage your value. The female subconscious needs to respect the man it is paired with. When a woman openly broadcasts a lack of respect for her man, she is essentially communicating to her social circle and to herself that he is a lower status male than she deserves. Why do women do this? In some cases, it's a preemptive move to manage potential rivals by making her current partner seem less desirable. In others, it is a psychological mechanism to justify her underlying resentment about settling. By finding flaws and diminishing your value, she can unconsciously reconcile the gap between the high-value fantasy man she desired and the stable, reliable man she actually committed to. Tolerating this behavior destroys not just your external reputation but your internal sense of self-efficacy. When the person closest to you consistently undermines your confidence, you eventually internalize that diminished image. You begin to question your own judgment, your competence, and your ability to succeed. This creates a man who is less capable, less confident, and less able to provide, thus reinforcing her initial contempt in a vicious, self-fulfilling prophecy. A man's mission, his competence, and his external success are central to his identity. A woman who attacks these pillars is not your partner. She is your psychological saboteur. Never tolerate a partner who makes you smaller to make herself feel bigger. Now that we have reviewed these 7 critical areas, contempt, testing, accountability, evasion, comparison, intimacy weaponization, selective accountability, and belittling, you must understand the unified conclusion. These behaviors are simply the outward symptoms of a lack of fundamental respect and often a deep-seated dissatisfaction with the choice she made. Your tolerance is the fertilizer that allows these toxic roots to grow. When you tolerate these actions, you are confirming 2 things to her and to the world. First, that your self-respect is negotiable, and second, that your fear of being alone is greater than your desire to be respected. The catastrophic climax of this tolerance is the moment you realize you have exchanged your identity for the illusion of peace. You have sacrificed the man you are meant to be for a relationship built on performance and compliance. You become the man who is quietly despised, the man whose resources are extracted, but whose presence is only tolerated. The relationship will eventually implode, leaving you not just divorced or broken up, but psychologically hollowed out, having lost years to supporting a woman who never genuinely respected you. The ultimate takeaway from this comprehensive analysis is that your commitment to your own boundaries is the single greatest predictor of your relationship success. Female psychology is wired to test. Your job as a grounded, mature man is not to resent the test, but to pass it consistently. Passing the test means drawing an immediate, clear, and non-negotiable line in the sand the moment any of these 7 behaviors surfaces. This is not about being aggressive. It is about being assertive. It is about demonstrating, without anger, that you value yourself too much to permit the corrosion of your dignity. If she argues, justifies, or attempts to negotiate your non-negotiable boundary, that is your exit sign. A woman who genuinely respects you and is committed to a lasting bond will adjust her behavior quickly and sincerely because she fears losing you. A woman who argues your boundaries is arguing for the right to continue disrespecting you. The path forward requires radical self-respect. It demands that you stop prioritizing external validation, the appearance of a relationship, over internal integrity. Your mission now is to recognize these patterns not as isolated incidents, but as systemic indicators of psychological damage or foundational contempt. Do not attempt to fix her. Fix your boundaries. Do not tolerate. Choose respect. You deserve a partner who is thrilled to be with you, who respects your masculine energy, and who contributes positively to your mission, not subtracts from it. Do not accept anything less than authentic respect and true partnership. Your time, your resources, and your future are too valuable to invest in a sinking ship merely because you are afraid to swim alone. This journey requires courage, and it requires commitment to truth. If this entire discussion has illuminated patterns in your own life that you now realize you must change, I want you to confirm your decision right now. I want you to make a definitive statement about your future. In the comments below, I want you to write this phrase, and only this phrase, to solidify your commitment to self-respect. My respect is non-negotiable. Put that in the comments right now, and join the growing ranks of men who refuse to tolerate contempt. You are gaining the clarity that the mainstream culture actively tries to suppress. If this profound understanding has shifted your perspective and empowered your decision-making, then ensure you stay connected to this vital information. Subscribe to this channel now. Do not delay, because this is the only space dedicated to delivering the unvarnished truth about relationship dynamics, female psychology, and male success. We are building the knowledge base that protects you from making life-altering mistakes. And if you found power in this message, hit the like button immediately. That simple action signals to the algorithm that this truth is necessary and must be distributed to more men who are currently struggling in silence, trapped by the lie of tolerance. We have unveiled the most common forms of disrespect you must eliminate. We have established the catastrophic consequences of your tolerance. But there is a crucial next-level concept that most men never grasp until it is too late. The specific techniques women use to manufacture emotional chaos and divert blame. In our next analysis, we are going to dissect the most dangerous forms of psychological deflection used in modern relationships, the tactics that force you to apologize for her bad behavior. You need to know these patterns cold to neutralize them before they destroy your sanity. Stay tuned for the next essential piece of intelligence that will shield you from manipulation and secure your masculine frame. The truth is your armor. Wear it well.